Boys, girls, and everyone else, welcome back to another Destiny Rising video. In this one, we're going to be, of course, talking about Ikora, the Hidden. Now, she is the new mythic that is, of course, a rework of a, epic version of herself. And she came with a little bit of criticism, and by a little bit, I mean a lot, because we had two remake characters back to back. I myself made a handful of videos, both trying to maintain positivity and also being like, where is the hype? I stand by everything I said leading up to it, but boys, I was wrong. Ikora, the Hidden, cooks. We're going to cover a lot in this video, so I'm going to tell you up front that while I don't show you the details of our testing in a video format, we do a lot of it in our live streams. And I try to take a more collaborative approach, so that way my community is very, very much hands-on in the development of builds like this, because I don't claim to know the most or be the best in Destiny Rising, but I do think the more minds that we get put together and to make a build makes it that much more fruitful for everyone else. So if you're new to the channel and you haven't been in a live stream, we do try to live stream every Sunday, Monday, Wednesday around 9:30 Eastern time on both Twitch and YouTube on this channel. So this build, while I'm be referencing a lot of testing, I'm not showing you the testing, just because of lack of time, and I don't want to make this video like 30 minutes long. So I'm going to be referencing things that have already been tested in the past, but again, take my word for it or test it out for yourself, because it's actually kind of uncanny, some of these things that I'm about to recommend to you. So let's go ahead and jump straight into it, boys and girls, and everyone else. All right, so Ikora the Hidden. First things first, how do I feel about Ikora? Like, how good is she? I T6'd her. That's how good I feel about her. So to give you an idea about me as a character, me as a player, and the amount of T6s, of course, just from playing, I have a bunch of like the epics T6'd, and then of the normal banner, I have Ningfei T6. And then outside of that, for the limited time banners, the only two that I have was Jaren and Hellhest, because of just how immensely good they were. So again, I'm not the type of person that's going to be T6ing everyone. I only T6 the ones that I feel like are going to be meta shifting, game breakingly good. And Ikora, I T6'd on day 2. Okay, so let's go. Ikora is really, really good. Now, I guess since we're already talking about T6s, I made a similar video about Maru. So if you are trying to figure out if it's worth going to T whatever, I will help you make that decision here today. So T1 is going to be the max charges of Stellar Projection, and max stacks of Volatile Energy are both raised to 2. And Stellar Projection applies an additional stack of Volatile Energy upon over-penetrating a combatant, lasting 10 seconds. I'm going to tell you up front that this is a really, really good pickup. I would highly recommend it. This is going to innately make her, I don't want to say double the damage like we saw with Maru, but it is going to help you tremendously, because so much of her kit is tied to each other. And you get to the point where if you have more charges of both of her signature abilities, you really can just, like, once you get once you get fully, I forgot that phrase, we'll get to it in a second, once you get to like your void form, essentially is what I've been calling it, you can just spam everything and basically just float in the air forever. It's actually kind of insane, and you do a crap ton of damage and you get instant resets. So I think this is just a key part. Is it a must pick up? No, but if you're considering it, and or maybe you have a few pulls, because of obviously we're getting 60 for free. So you're going to be getting her for free for sure, at least at one copy. I personally would go ahead and get to at least a T1, because it's going to more or less cost you nothing. If you're saving your resources and applying them the right way, you can easily get 60 draws in a month, just from the Lumia leaves that we get sort of just from playing the game on a daily basis, and all the different ways that we get them, especially with some of the new events that are giving us Lumia leaves. And the maintenance is, of course, every week that gives us 200. So in my honest opinion, it's pretty easy to get to at least the 50 to 60 pulls at a monthly basis. So I think getting her T1 is basically, imagine getting a hero who wouldn't have been given to us for free, but it's just going to help her kit that much more. So get her to T1. I feel like it's a really good choice. I'm not going to go through all of it for you, because again, I'm not trying to make this video insanely long. All of it is going to help either give her more overshield, or give her more damage, or just everything is just making her stronger. The T6 though is kind of insane in all the best ways possible. So I do think this is another similar situation where you're either going to want to T1 her, or just T6er. There's probably few and far between that you would stop in between. I'm sure that I could sit here and go through it in great detail and make an argument for each individual one. But like I said, those of you that are watching this video just want an answer quickly. So on the scale of T1 to T6, T1 I would say is an easy must pick up because we're getting 60 pulls for free. And then if you are considering going past that, go ahead and just T6 her. She's that good. I don't want to say she's future proof, but she has so much in her kit in terms of survivability, movement speed, overall damage, AoE damage. Like her super is just insane. It has a lower cooldown than others that have seemingly less damage. She's really good, guys. So T6, just really quickly, is stellar projection continues spinning after reaching its max angle of 360, which can overpenetrate combatants again and generate another delayed detonation. However, all damage from this is reduced to 60%. So essentially, your signature one is a beam that starts from the ground and goes up, and you sort of get like a quick little zoom, and it's going to go wherever your cursor is. So it's really good. It does a lot of damage. Now, the second one's just going to be doing 60% less damage, but you're doing it a second time. And it's actually faster. I do think that's important to note. So the first one sort of goes zoom, and then the second one goes zoom. That's a very accurate measurement, by the way. Zoom, and then zoom. That's exactly how it works. So don't question me ever again. Moving on past that. Again, her overall kick, I'm going to assume that you guys can read this. In terms of how she plays, you're just going to want to maintain airborne as much as you can. It sounds a little intimidating up front until you literally play her and you realize with her signature 2, with her dashes, you can basically stay up in the air for a long time, assuming you have all 3 charges in a specific fight. And then once you get to her, again, it's called Void Annihilation, but I call it just, oopsie. Oops. Oh no, I didn't mean to decline it. Oh, I thought it was an invite. My bad. Oh, this is embarrassing. For the record, I usually accept all friend requests. I just thought that was a fire team invite, and I just saw F. F for me. L. Anyway, I call it void form. So once you get to void form, you get basically a full resets of all of it, and you can more or less just combust. Her ultimate is literally insane. It just drops basically nukes in a specific area. You can aim it pretty well. It does not track. That is the only downside, and it's not a big downside. In fact, I think it would be truly overpowered if it did track. And by tracking, I mean if there is a person I'm trying to put it on and they move out of it after I put it, there is a short delay between you putting down the marker and the actual nukes / balls coming down. So if they move out of it, you're just SOL. So try to do it on a stationary target or during a phase where you know the individual or boss, whatever your mechanic you're working on, doesn't move, so you don't miss it. It does have a pretty decent, like, healthy margin in terms of how much damage it will do, but people can, in fact, move out of it. I have had that happen a few times, but because it's not such a, like, make or break part of her kit, it doesn't feel too bad if it misses because you're going to get tons of damage just from everything else that she's doing. Again, without reading all this to you, we talked about this one already. The signature one is stellar projection. That's sort of the beams that we talked about. The other one is her dash. This is also going to be giving you a micro black hole, which does do some decent amount of damage, but it also reloads your weapon, or will overfill it. So let's say we're using a grenade launcher or an LGL, light grenade launcher. It's going to, if it only has 1 in the chamber and you dash, it will go to 2 in the chamber. If you dash again, it does not go to 3. It will only double it the 1 time. So a really good way, you get 3 charges of this and it has a pretty quick cooldown. So essentially you just don't want to reload. You don't have to reload. I'm not saying ever, but in most fights, like if you go through 3 LGLs and then switch to your rocket launcher, whichever one you're using, which we'll talk about here in a second, you can more or less destroy everything in that sort of phase. So you're getting a lot of damage, a lot of resets, and it is a dash with movement speed. So, and by movement speed, I just mean it covers distance. So it does help with Singularity Chaos or Calamity Ops, literally anything you would want to move fast for, any sort of timed mechanic. Again, that was my only real gripe with Maru, and I'm not going to talk about Maru too much in this video in a comparison. I'm going to make that as a separate video because I do think that there's a lot to talk about with that one. So overall, that's her kit in terms of her abilities. You have the beam with the boom boom if you get a T6, or just the boom. And then you, of course, you have her dash. The more balls you do generate is how you get to your void form, which you get full resets on everything, and then just makes you do more damage. She does get an overshield basically all the time. She almost always has an overshield, and once you use the artifacts, I'm going to show you here in a second, you can almost maintain 100% overshield, which is actually kind of crazy because you can maintain a huge amount of overshields and damage and movement like at a pretty high rate. And again, one of my favorite things about Jaren Ward was that his kit felt very lucid. It felt like water. It was very flowy. You know, you could dash, use your signature one with this one, dash and do it again, and then you could do all these different things. So that's why I personally really love Jaren Ward, and there's a lot of his kit, in my opinion, in Ikora the Hidden. So we were talking about on my live stream a little bit. Ikora the Hidden is basically a combination of Hellhest, Jaren Ward, and Maru. All the best things, in my opinion, about all of them is what Ikora has. It's kind of crazy. So she is that good. And again, I T6'd her on day 2 just to give you an idea when I don't typically do that. So yeah, that's it, and that's her kit. Let's talk about her guns before we get into the artifacts. There's a lot of, I don't say drama, but there's a lot of conversation. It's good conversation, and there's a lot of good testing going on. I'm never going to fault someone who posts a video that involves testing, because there's certain tests that can be skewed differently based off different artifacts, different play styles. So just because I'm about to say one thing doesn't mean that somebody else is wrong. You have to look at all the different factors. And again, with a character like Ikora the Hidden, you can truly build her in so many different ways. Like, she has so many good artifact options. That if someone shows you something else that has higher numbers, it doesn't mean that somebody else is wrong. It just really depends on all those details, like the artifacts and, again, the different combinations they use to get to that sort of final number. But again, so what I'm going to show you in this video that I deem to be the best available after some testing and some conversation with the community, and only being out for a few days. Again, I'm not going to say this is the best period build. I sort of had a delayed build that came out with Jaren Ward that I still stand on business, and I'm still getting people that are like, wow, that build is sick. That build will obviously come out later for Ikora once we have all had a lot more time with her. But just my initial build in terms of meta, which does stand for most effective thing available. So based off the most effective thing available to us, based off our knowledge right now, this is the build I'm showing you. First off, of course, you would think that the truth is going to be the most effective thing available to us, because it is in the battle pass that came out with her at the same time. This is not a truth video, but again, the truth is going to be what feels like the most obvious pick. And I'm going to tell you up front, it's not actually. So after testing, it does do good damage, but it doesn't even beat by a significant margin the 4-horn ram. In fact, it's a pretty minuscule difference between the two in terms of damage. And again, this is an epic that doesn't even have, or a mythic that doesn't even have exotics for some of these traits. And while we're talking about the 4-horn ram, this is the go-to that I would recommend. The two-tailed fox, if you were to compare all three of these and look at the damage, the two-tailed fox, all three of these rather, actually, if you were to even include all, like the bellowing giant, which is also really good. I didn't try this one actually, so I will not speak to this one, but I did test 4-horn ram and bellowing giant, truth, and two-tailed fox. Two-tailed fox does the least amount of damage of all 4, which is crazy with Ikora, the Hidden. So whoopsie. I just had something that popped up and said restart my computer. So the two-tailed fox, I think, gives you, like, there are things that it's really good at. So it does give you a lot of flexibility, because it is giving you both a solar and a void attack or rocket. So it does do a lot of damage in that aspect, and it can help break certain shields. I don't think we're going to have an issue with breaking shields with Ikora, so I'm not incredibly worried about the different elements. So I'm not too worried about that. Similar to that of Jaren Ward, like you have a lot of shotgun options, but you're going to want to use the one that does the most damage, because you can still break the shields of the opposite elements. So it's similar. So that even the best fact with the twin tails, the two-tailed fox, it's not even enough to justify the lack of damage that you're getting. If we go into the truth is good. It can hold more capacity for rockets. Each chamber does hold, the magazine cap is 3. So there is a lot of rockets coming out. And of course, with Ikora, you can double it up to 6. And you do get that, free reload basically. So it feels as though it would be the most damage. However, it's not. And the reason the truth is so good is that it does have, it can hold more, right? But even for a rocket launcher that isn't an exotic, that can't hold as much, you're still not doing enough damage. So if you can do more damage with shooting less, wouldn't you want that? So that's where I leaned on the four-horned ram a lot. And I still think this is the best option after playing with all of them. If you do have the bellowing giant fully kitted out with all the different mods, then sure, you could do that. It's a viable option as well. But in terms of overall best damage between the two, between four-horned ram and the bellowing giant, you're going to get more out of the four-horned ram. And then that does free up your exotic slot. And for anyone who has ever played with the Diverger drill compared to the present fleet, because that's all in terms of either mythic or exotic options we have, the drill is just not even closely better in a lot of ways, and it flows with the kit tremendously. Again, the instant the refresh of the ammo and not having to reload. I find myself doing more damage with the drill than I would even a rocket launcher in most cases. I'm basically saving my heavy ammo for boss fights. And that's it. And even then, I feel like I don't need to, because I would also just save her ultimate for that. Again, it depends on the content, of course, and what you're doing. But yeah, the Divergent Drill is pretty goated. And on my live stream, we talked about it being a decent option. After more testing, it's like kind of the only option. I'm not going to lie. Like, this is a must, in my opinion. This is the best exotic for Ikora. In terms of best rocket launchers, it's the four-horn ram. In terms of damage, because it's so minutely close to the truth, and you can shoot less and basically do the same amount of damage faster. And then it also gives you the ability of using the drill. So I think the drill, this is going to be your best combination for Ikora in terms of weapons. I do think that more testing will happen, of course, especially when people start to max out the truth completely. But at least at first glance, based off how much knowledge and testing that we have done, this is my assessment so far. Moving on. We talked about her abilities. We talked about the talent tree, but we haven't talked about artifacts yet. This is one that I actually had a really hard time with. I did rely on my live stream to help me with this, but after playing and making some adjustments, I feel really, really good about this. So the first slot is Undaunted Blizzard. So gaining an overshield also grants you plus 25% damage resist for 2 seconds. Repeatedly gaining this effect extends the buff's duration to a max of 10 seconds. Okay, so basically once you get an overshield, you can get a damage resist of plus 25%, which is a pretty healthy damage resist. And then for the slot 2, there's Siphoning Blizzard, which is going to be giving us, when the wielder has an overshield, dealing AoE damage to combatants, grant overshield equal to 26% of the initial damage dealt for 10 seconds. So if you combine that with the first one, obviously you are going to be getting more overshields, which is going to be extending the duration of the damage resist. So if you have damage resist at 25% and you have basically a maintained overshield, bruh, it's awesome. So then we go into how do we make her do more damage. So if you're new to the game, or just coming back to the game, slots 1 and 2 on your artifacts are very much the defensive options, whereas slot 3 and 4 is where you get all your damage. So slot 3, this one was mind blowing. It makes sense once it's explained, but up front, it was truly mind-boggling. And after testing it, like it actually does work. So Rampaging Pact. Summons grant the wielder 33% damage bonus for 6 seconds upon taking the field. Now here's what's crazy. I was like, what freaking summons does Ikora have? Turns out the signature 1 ability with that zoom laser beam counts as a summon. Turns out the black balls that you also summon with their signature 2 also count as a summon. So you're almost always going to have some amount of a summon available to you all the time, which is going to just give you 33% damage. And it is just 33% damage, period. And it's not just weapon damage or ability damage. That's where I had a really hard time, is that there are some really good options in this slot 3 that give you one or the other. Either it be weapon damage or ability damage or signature damage, something like that. You know what I mean? Like, and you can get to, maybe even higher percents. But this one, I was like, it's just all damage. So yeah, if I can do both weapon and a signature damage increase for free that I don't have to cognitively think about, then yeah, I want that. So Rampaging Pact, I think, is surprisingly like a sleeper option, and I'm pleasantly surprised that I'm able to give you this information so early in Ikora's like sort of testing and development. So use that. Last one is Bellicose Blizzard. AoE damage is increased by 25%, additionally dealing AoE damage, increasing the wielder's movement speed by 15% for 3 seconds. All right, so obviously you're going to be doing AoE damage all the time, and then you just get movement speed ability. Like, so again, you already have a dash, now you're getting more movement speed, you always are going to have an overshield available to you, and then you're almost always going to have a flat 33% damage increase, but we're also doing additional 25% just all the time for AoE damage. And the good thing about this is that if you are somebody who even worked on Maru at all. These are probably at least 3 of the different ones of the different artifacts that you were using on her. So you might already have this and be able to just truly plug and play. But again, this is based off the testing that we have done and the limited time that we've had. This feels like the best available build. The damage is insane in terms of priorities. You do want to focus on. Let me go over here. You do want to focus on weapon, ability, strength, and if you can get super, I thought that was a nice 3-0 combination. The other one, you could do void. It's fine. I truly am just going to prioritize weapon and ability damage the most because that's what you're doing the most out of your damage is ability and enhancement. You could do super as well. Vulnerability, it was there when I pulled it, so I was like, okay, I'll keep it there. But again, there's a lot of different builds. I'm not saying that other builds are shit or bad, but this build does feel really, really strong once you start playing with it with everything else that we talked about. So like I said, guys, Ikora came out and I was not excited about her. Very similar to Maru, but after playing with her, holy moly, is she good. And they cooked. Her kit is fun. I'm sure it's a remake character, but it is a dramatically different remake. And the play style is even dramatically different. So I have no regrets in going all in on Ikora. And if you decide to do the same, I don't think you'll have any regrets either. Again, I'm not saying she's future-proof and she's not going to be power crept at some point in the game. And we'll talk about the impacts to Mario in a different video. But dude, Ikora the Hidden is insane and so much fun. Anyway, that's a 20-minute video for you guys. I try to keep it as short as I could, but I do want to try to give you as much details at the same time as I can. So hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Like I said, we'll be live streaming every Sunday, Monday, and Wednesday. Most days on starting around 9:30 Eastern time. I have more videos scheduled for Ikora because there's a lot more that we can break down and different viable options, which to me tells just how good a character is if they do have other viable options and different builds. So anyway, I'm going to go back to enjoying Ikora the Hidden. Hopefully you are as well. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. Love you guys and hope to see you in a video or a live stream very soon. See you later. Bye.